Hello, I'm Sharon Brullier. Welcome to another summer 2022 edition of the Best of Reel to Reel. We are continuing to bring you some of our favorite programs that aired during this past season. Today's program first aired on the weekend of October 23rd, 2021. I hope you enjoy it. Coming up on this edition of Reel to Reel.
I'm Steve Kiltonic in Holyoke, where I'll have the story of Catholic Charities' mission to resettle Afghan evacuees.
The Massachusetts Catholic bishops are asking Catholics to voice their opposition to physician-assisted suicide. I'm Carolee McGrath. I'll have the story coming up.
And Dressed in His Love, a parish sewing ministry provides simple dresses and shirts for some of the poorest children in the world. These stories are coming your way next on Reel to Reel. Hello and welcome to Reel to Reel. Today in our show we'll be highlighting how our local church communities are helping to respond to global needs. First up, ever since the August 31st withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan, tens of thousands of evacuees have arrived in the U.S. Among the local organizations responsible for resettling evacuees is Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Springfield. Steve Kiltonic spoke with its director, Catherine Buckley Bronner, this week about the difficult task of resettling and assimilating Afghanis into a new culture as they begin their new lives here in Western Massachusetts.
Since the United States withdrawal from Afghanistan on August 30th, approximately 73,000 Afghans have been flown out of the country. Most have arrived in the United States. About 1,000 of those are destined for Massachusetts. In Western Massachusetts, 3 agencies are responsible for resettlement of nearly 400 Afghan evacuees, which includes Jewish Family Services, Accentria, and Catholic Charities, which has agreed to take in a total of 60. To date, 14 of those cases have arrived, which includes 2 families. For the Afghan evacuees assigned to Catholic Charities, their first taste of life in America will take place inside this house in Holyoke, thanks to the generosity of the Franciscan Missionary Sisters of Assisi. 5 single Afghan men are currently being housed at the missionary house. The sisters have also made another retreat home available in Chicopee for the families and for others still to come. The evacuees spent a month being processed at one of 8 military bases in the U.S., where they were medically screened, tested for COVID-19, and applied for immigration status.
We're following up on things like their Social Security cards and their employment authorization documents, making sure that they're vaccinated, all of these other things. We are trying to find housing as well as get them employed as quickly as possible so that they have the means by which they can actually go from this temporary housing position into something more permanent.
As evacuees are humanitarian parolees, they are qualified to apply for asylum, not as refugees. The federal government provides funds for each evacuee, but with a 3-month window. Buckley Bronner said it could take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to resettle each evacuee and find permanent housing. Government red tape slows down the process even further as they lack legal residency status.
It is a monumental process, partly because the employment authorization document and their Social Security numbers are paramount in helping people find employment. And those documents are taking far longer to get to us than would be normal.
We all watched the chaotic scenes at the Kabul airport as thousands of Afghans tried to get out of the country at the same time before the U.S. military left. Many were crushed to death during the evacuation. Shirzad, 28, is from Kabul, where he lived with his parents, brother, and 2 sisters. He worked as director of security for a company in Kabul. Shirzad and his family spent 5 days outside the airport trying to get through the gates. How did you get through when your other family didn't?
There was rush.
There was
بیروبار زیاد بود ما داخل شده تونستم ما نتونستم.
There was a lot of crowd of people. Because of crowd in most people, so we cannot stand in stability. So we separate in the crowd of people. I go enter and they left behind of me and they can't access to enter.
Shirzad remains in contact with his family, but he's worried about the Taliban and their safety. He spoke about his dream in America.
First of all, if it's possible, I want to study. If not, I'm ready to take certain jobs.
And what would you like to study? Anything in particular?
I studied in Afghanistan BBA. I'm Bachelor Business Administration.
Shaheen, 26, is from the Panjshir province north of Kabul. He worked as a supply specialist for the Ministry of Defense, who contracted out for the Americans. Shaheen tried 3 times to leave Afghanistan, but was forced back. For 3 days, Shaheen, his younger brother, and uncle attempted to breach the main airport gate.
Near the terminal, we are divided in 3 parts. Because it was too much rashes, the American soldiers called, come one by one. Because of that reason, we are separated with each other.
All 3 managed to eventually get through. With degrees already in business administration and computer science, his goal in America is to find a job in computer networking. As the sole supporter of his family, Shaheen hopes to find employment soon so he can send money back home. He is also very concerned about retribution by the Taliban against his family because he worked with the Americans and for the country's Ministry of Defense.
They say, why do you work with America? Why? What's the reason? And also, why do you work with the Ministry of Defense? They have several punishes according to your crime. Like, you work it with American, it has a special punish. That work with government, a special punish. They try to find the family and an ID.
Do you fear for your family?
Yes.
The families here did not want to be interviewed or photographed because of their expressed fear they or their children would be identified. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has identified the Afghan evacuees as a national priority through the Catholic charity offices.
Welcoming the refugees and helping them resettle and acclimate and integrate into our culture is a complicated process. And it also requires generosity.
We've developed many good friends and associates, so we've been using those networks to get the message out. And relying on the goodwill, basically, of many fine people out there, like the sisters here, who heard that there was a need.
Buckley Brunner has reintroduced its Circle of Care volunteer groups created 40 years ago to help refugees.
It's wonderful. It's a way for people to be involved beyond just the idea of donating.
While the difficult journey toward making a new life in America has just begun for these Afghan evacuees, Buckley Brunner has high hopes.
I find that there's tremendous heart and will to really make a success of themselves.
For Real to Real, I'm Steve Kiltonick.
I'm Dan Dumas with your Real to Real news briefs. 1 week after Pope Francis launched the 2-year Global Synod with a Mass at St. Peter's Basilica, dioceses around the world followed suit. Kathy Harrington reports on the opening Mass held here in the Diocese of Springfield last weekend.
Yellow and white flags, symbolic of the Bishop of Rome, were flying overhead as Bishop William Byrne, joined by Fathers Michael Piers and John Lessard Thibodeau, entered the Cathedral of St. Michael on Sunday as the Diocese of Springfield took the first steps on the Synod journey.
It seems like there's a lot of hoopla on this Sunday morning. It's because we're opening the Synod. Our Holy Father has called for a worldwide Synod.
Rolling out in 3 stages, this Mass begins the diocesan phase. In his homily, Bishop Byrne helped to define a synod.
Imagine that you decided to walk to Mass today, and you are walking here and you bump into somebody that you see at Mass every week, but don't really know much about them. Maybe you know their name or maybe you don't. So you decide to walk together. And as you stroll to St. Michael's Cathedral, you begin to talk and to tell your stories, and you listen to the other person. And before you know it, things are different. You're friends.
Friendship and engagement enriches the life of the parish, the bishop explains, and the meeting on the way, the listening to each other, and the resulting change is essentially a synod. Pope Francis is asking every Catholic to participate, active and inactive, young and old, regardless of gender, race, or language, because the Holy Spirit works through all.
You are as much a part of the church as the Pope or me or anyone else. And so, by nature of our baptism, we are called fundamentally to be members of that body, to be actively engaged in the life of the church.
Father Piers leads the team charged with devising a plan to reach out to Catholics here, then rolling it out just after Christmas.
The Holy Father wants us to gather together in our parishes, in our prayer groups, together as a whole diocese, so that we can tell him how the Holy Spirit is speaking to us and where we believe the Lord is calling us to be a better church as we move forward.
And as the Synod prayer says, let us find in you our unity. For Real to Real, I'm Kathy Harrington.
St. Cecilia's Parish in Wilbraham, which will be marking 25 years in their new church this month, held a Living Rosary earlier this year. Carolee McGrath reports.
Close to 150 people gathered inside of St. Cecilia's in Wilbraham to honor Mary in late May, participating in a Living Rosary.
I believe in God, the Father Almighty.
60 parishioners signed up to be a living bead, forming the shape of the rosary inside of the church and reciting the Hail Mary and other prayers. The intentions were put in a basket and placed before a statue of the Blessed Mother.
The rosary's been a very powerful prayer over centuries for the Catholic Church and those who are Catholic, as well as other faiths. And it's a prayer in which we, through the intercession of Mary, take our prayers to God.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you.
While many groups within the parish meet at different times throughout the year to pray the rosary, the Living Rosary drew a big crowd.
When I drove in the parking lot and saw the number of people that were here, I was amazed, absolutely amazed, and I thought, our Blessed Mother must just be giddy.
More than 100 years ago, the Blessed Mother asked the children at Fatima to pray the rosary every day for peace and conversion.
She brings us to her son Jesus, that's where we want to be in the end.
This rosary, Living Rosary, came for two reasons. One, because May is the month of Mary, and secondly, because we have a new wonderful pastor, Father John, and it was a dream of his to bring the Living Rosary here at St. Cecilia's. And the whole group came together, we put all our love into it to make sure that this is a beautiful tribute to Mary, our mother, and in gratitude for Father John being in our parish.
St. Cecilia's plans on making the Living Rosary a tradition in the parish. In Wilbraham, I'm Carolee McGrath.
Elms College in Chicopee expanded its dual enrollment program this fall to now include St. Mary's High School in Westfield. As Nick Morganelli reports, it's a win-win situation for all involved.
St. Mary's High School in Westfield structures their weekly class schedule using a university model, meeting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or on a Tuesday, Thursday schedule. One reason? To make it possible for homeschooled families to participate. Now, there's another benefit to this change.
We've had the dual enrollment program with various schools, with the Catholic high schools with Pope Francis, and now it's really been re-energized and energized with St. Mary's. That is a great way for them to get started their college education, feel comfortable that they have what it takes to follow college courses.
Guidance Director Terry Garfield is happy with the addition.
Elms has made this a very smooth and very easy process for those kids who are interested in taking college classes. We have to match up their schedule in school with the time of the class.
And the other added benefit to this program?
For free. For free, for nothing, right? Dual enrollment.
A little lighter on their parents' wallets by accumulating up to 12 college credits while they are in high school.
Senior Jordan Peniello is taking psychology with two other high school students.
It's amazing, I love it. I want to go into the medical field, so having general psychology out of the way is amazing. It's definitely a step up. We actually do most of our work online, and I love the fact that our book is also online. We're allowed to highlight, note it, annotate.
And she also spoke highly of her teacher.
I always like to come in early and just make sure I'm understanding everything.
Junior Everett Steck needs the same class as he plans to be a firefighter through a military career.
It's a little more challenging being in a college course, but the work's not too bad. You get a week to do it.
there's a quiz at the, at the end of the week of what you've learned so far. So it's not bad. It's a little more difficult to juggle it with sports and, schoolwork.
Hoping that they will see, the care and the way that the faculty and the staff support and surround them at Elms College.
Finding excellence in education through partnership for Real to Real, I'm Nick Morganelli.
Remember, you can always stay informed on all the latest news in the Catholic Church locally and beyond by logging on to iobserve.org. There you can read articles from our Catholic communication staff, as well as watch on-demand episodes of Real to Real. That's iobserve.org. I'm Dan Dumas, and those were your Real to Real news briefs.
Thanks, Dan, and there's still much more ahead on Real to Real. The Catholic bishops in Massachusetts are asking parishioners to voice their opposition to proposed legislation supporting physician-assisted suicide. Carolee McGrath will have that story. And I'll introduce you to a Massachusetts parish that's providing clothing to children in the poorest countries of the world. These stories and more on Real to Real.
The Chalice of Salvation, your weekly spiritual connection. I'm Passionist Brother Terrence Scanlon, your Chalice host, inviting you to take time out of your busy day and join us at the earlier hour of 6 a.m. this Sunday morning. We welcome Father Christopher Malatesta as our Mass presider and celebrate the 16th Sunday in Ordinary Time. The Chalice of Salvation Sunday morning at 6 a.m. on WWOP TV 22.
All our lives, we've been told.
Work hard.
Achieve. Get to the next level.
But sometimes, our best efforts fall short. We start to think maybe we don't have what it takes.
Or maybe we do.
Jesus took on the sins of the whole world. He conquered even death itself.
He invites us to follow him. He wants us to trust him.
And through him, through his body and blood, we are united in Jesus. And to each other. Everything we're searching for.
Hail Mary, full of grace.
Our hopes and our dreams.
Points to a Father.
Who loves us unconditionally.
Who called us by name.
If you knew that receiving the Eucharist would change your life. And change the world. What will you do?
What would you do?
What would you do? Join us for the Year of the Eucharist.
After voters rejected a ballot question a few years back, Massachusetts lawmakers are once again considering legislation that would legalize physician-assisted suicide. The Catholic bishops in the state are asking the faithful to call their representatives and again voice their opposition. Carolee McGrath has more.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
People prayed before Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament at St. John the Evangelist Parish in Agawam this past week. The pro-life prayer vigil was planned to coincide with Respect Life Month, which is marked each October. Catholic teaching calls on caring for life at all stages, from conception to natural death. Currently, lawmakers are considering a bill that would legalize physician-assisted suicide. The bills, House 2381 and Senate 1384, are called an act relative to end-of-life options.
This is when those elderly or are very, very sick are at their most vulnerable. And do they, the question is, and people don't think about that, is you're getting them in their most vulnerable time, and are they depressed? So they should be treated for that. Are they making this decision because they think they're a burden on somebody?
The bishops of Massachusetts are asking the faithful to call their representatives to say no to this legislation, which is before the Joint Committee on Public Health.
Physician-assisted suicide is an offense against life. You see, the quote-unquote right to die eventually becomes a duty to die. It also removes any redemptive quality to suffering. Our Lord on the cross showed us that that was transformative for our world. And so it is that what we need to do is kill the pain, not the person.
The Massachusetts Catholic Conference points to several flaws, including the bills would allow a physician to provide a lethal prescription to a person given less than 6 months to live, but the diagnosis could be wrong. And there are no real safeguards. People could feel pressured, and doctors are not required to be present when the pills are taken. Many in favor of physician-assisted suicide will say they don't want to see their loved ones suffer. But opponents of physician-assisted suicide say the answer to that is proper pain management, not a lethal dose of pills. Dr. Mark Rollo, a recently retired family physician, says the proposed law violates the Hippocratic Oath doctors take to do no harm.
The fact of the matter is we already have ethical end-of-life options. We have hospice, which I think many people are aware of, and we have palliative care, where doctors specialize in managing pain. So it's no longer necessary for anyone to die in excruciating pain. And the other concern that people cite is they don't want to be a burden on friends and relatives. That's higher on the list than pain. And by legalizing assisted suicide, we're basically agreeing with people. We're saying, yeah, you are a burden.
Judy Cross says it was incredibly hard to watch her sister suffer from cancer, but she says she'd never trade those last moments.
In that last 15 minutes, she suddenly was at home in bed. She opened her eyes and she just sat up and she looked at us and grabbed each of us by hand and kissed us, and then laid down and stopped breathing. But that was a gift. None of us, my siblings would never, and her husband would never have traded that.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
A petition to legalize physician-assisted suicide was narrowly defeated in 2012. Catholics are praying that this proposal will not move forward. Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm Carolee McGrath.
This weekend, the Catholic Church will mark World Mission Sunday, a time to prayerfully consider the important, and as we witnessed this past week in Haiti, the dangerous work of missionaries around the globe. But as we learn in the next story, you don't necessarily need to leave home to be a missionary's helper. Mercy Sews, a parish ministry based in the Archdiocese of Boston, has been answering Christ's call to be merciful by sewing simple dresses, shirts, and blankets for children in some of the poorest countries of the world. I visited St. Mary Parish in Hanover in late summer, where after a year of sewing, members of the ministry gathered for a special Mass and blessing of the dresses, celebrated by Bishop Dennis Kofu Ebenazi of the Central African Republic, as the group prepared to ship their articles to that nation. They've been cutting fabric, pinning, and sewing for months. Members of Mercy Sews, a ministry begun in 2016 with Pope Francis' call to action during the Jubilee Year of Mercy. Stitching soft baby blankets, little dresses and shirts, reaching out with mercy and love to people of Central African Republic, a war-torn country that's also one of the poorest on earth. It all started because of a longtime friendship between Father Chris Hickey, pastor of St. Mary's, one of the churches in Holy Mother's Collaborative in Hanover, and Bishop Dennis Ebenazi, Bishop of Berberati in Central African Republic. The bishop is a priest of the Society of African Missions, ministering in a 28,000 square mile area to the poorest of the poor, including the nomadic pygmies.
The missionary presence among them started about almost 50 years ago. That's how do we bring the gospel to them? And for our congregation, Society of African Mission Fathers, our motto is to reach out to the most abandoned. Reach out to the most abandoned, and the pygmy population has become our first primary evangelization in that area.
During his yearly summer visits to Massachusetts, the bishop has opened parishioners' eyes and hearts to realizing just how they could connect with people 6,000 miles away, in effect, becoming missionaries themselves.
To clothe the people with the warmth of Christ, that of Christ, a corporal work of mercy, as Pope Francis has told us during the year of mercy.
We thought, well, let's try to use what we have, which is a simple talent, but we thought we would put it into sewing for the little children, specifically dresses for the little girls.
Mercy Sews started with 26 members. Since then, it's grown to more than 160. Most people are from 24 towns in Massachusetts, but they also have members in California, New Jersey, Ohio, and Florida. They have sewn and shipped 5,000 dresses and sent 5,000 t-shirts, 2,000 blankets, 350 children's shorts, 200 hand-knit dolls, and tens of thousands of rosaries.
We've added blankets because we heard that the babies had nothing, absolutely nothing to be wrapped in after they were born. The blankets are actually given by the bishop to encourage the women to come in to get prenatal care at the clinic.
Parishioner Eileen Henberry says the ministry is all about putting her faith into action.
I hear St. James saying, you know, if you just wish someone have a good day, but they're hungry, I have nothing to wear, that's not your faith.
And the retired school teacher certainly has been practicing what she preaches. She personally has sewn 1,200 dresses, averaging about 500 each year. Henneberry says she takes particular pride in sewing a special pocket on each dress, even though the little one who wears it might not own anything to put in that pocket.
It gives them hope that someday they'll have something to put in the pocket. That's how desperately poor they are. And that's why I like my pockets to be special. I want them to notice that it's not just camouflaged with the same fabric, it's different, it stands out.
Members of Mercy Sews attending the special Mass received a blessing from Bishop Dennis as he told the group that their efforts help the poor to gain self-esteem and respect. And in turn, the ministry helps the sewers too.
But we've also found that it increases our dignity to realize that no matter what age we are, whether we're retired or whatever condition we're in, whatever amount of time we have, that we can still do something wonderful in this world to make a difference.
Bishop Dennis blessed the dresses, shirts, and blankets, and then all of this year's efforts were packed up in large blue drums and sent via cargo ship around Labor Day to make the long journey to Africa. It will take about 3 months to arrive at their destination. Bishop Dennis plans to hand out the dresses and shirts on the Feast of the Epiphany, which is also known as the Feast of the Missionary Children. On that day, hundreds of children will be dressed in his love.
Love does not know distance. Love does not know any distance.
This is such a worthwhile ministry and one that anyone who sews can do from home. If you'd like to get involved with Mercy Sews, we have a link to their website at iobserve.org. They'll be collecting the next round of articles in mid-August. And for this week, that's Real to Real. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to follow the latest news of the Catholic Church both here in the Diocese of Springfield and around the world on our news and information site, iobserve.org, and also on Facebook at Catholic Communications. And a special programming note for viewers of the Chalice of Salvation televised Mass on WWLP Springfield. Please note that Chalice will air at the earlier time of 6 a.m. tomorrow, so set your alarm clock and join Brother Terrence Scanlon tomorrow at 6 a.m. for the Chalice of Salvation. And I'll see you right back at this same time next week for another best of edition of Real to Real, your window on the world around you. See you then.
Real to Real is a production of the Catholic Communications Corporation, funded in part by the annual Catholic Appeal, and the support of you, our faithful viewers.